The county I live in has about 50 data centers or something like that, and they're asking people to start preserving power. On top of that, we're being asked to start preserving water. 50 data centers, at least, in this county. And mind you, our temperatures are about to hit an average of 120 degrees across the state. But you want us to preserve water and power so the data centers can run.
You just heard from an American whose county actually had the audacity to ask its residents to preserve power and water, even though its local data centers are the ones consuming more power and more water than ever before. And mind you, those data centers are often heavily subsidized by taxpayers in the first place. Many of them don't have to pay any taxes at all. We're talking $0. Yet, they're allowed to suck up as much power and as much water as they need to, even during climate change-induced heat waves, while the people who pay for their operations are being asked to conserve. It is truly outrageous, and to add insult to injury, we're being forced to foot the bill for these data centers that are going to fuck us over, that are going to power AI technology that will be used to take our jobs, to spy on us, and fuel political misinformation that's ultimately going to harm us. But as bad as it already is, it could get even worse because the CEO of the largest energy company in the country warned that AI data centers could start to cause blackouts as soon as next year. And he says that his company already had to limit services to hundreds of thousands of customers last year during the extreme cold, which is also a consequence of anthropogenic climate change, I might add. So as extreme weather becomes more common, thanks to rich people who decided to destroy our planet for short-term profits, we may lose our ability to literally just survive the conditions that were created against our will. And I don't use the word survive lightly. Please don't think I'm being hyperbolic, because people who don't have heat and air conditioning could die, namely the most vulnerable among us, such as the elderly and people with pre-existing medical conditions. But most policymakers, they don't give a fuck. They would happily sacrifice countless lives to the gods of capitalism if it meant that corporate profits continue to rise without interruption. But the good news is that this seems like one of the few issues that Americans aren't actually ignorant about, because how could they be when these fucking data centers are everywhere? But as Frank Landemore put it in an article for Futurism, Americans have turned against AI in incredible numbers, and he references a Pew Research poll showing that Americans are coming to overwhelmingly loathe AI, even though they're using the technology more so than ever before. And just 16% of Americans believe that AI will have a positive impact on society, with Gen Z being the most skeptical, with 48% believing that it'll have a negative impact on society overall, even though the same demographic uses it the most. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. Perhaps people see some value in Grok or ChatGPT perhaps for research purposes and whatnot, but even though they're using it themselves, they're still not buying into this idea that AI is revolutionary. And in fact, they see it as a net negative to society overall. And this is really bad news for an industry that's been trying to shove this bullshit down our fucking throats for years now. AI obviously is the new NFT. And big tech dickheads aren't pretending like it's the best thing since sliced bread because of, some sunken cost fallacy. They're pretending like it's revolutionary because the overinflated valuation of their companies hinges on this promise. If AI turns out to be nothing more than another wet fart like NFTs, all the money that they invested in it was for naught. In fact, our entire economy is currently being propped up by big tech companies run by bullshitters who've convinced rich investors that AI is going to be the most profitable thing ever. One day. They just have to wait a little bit and, let it marinate, and then it'll all pay off. But that's the thing about AI. Even if it were to catch on, it'll benefit no one but the richest oligarchs in the world. It provides nothing of value to regular people, though, and that's the problem with AI. That's the problem that rich people have, because they're realizing that we're catching on to the scam that they're pushing on us. You gain absolutely nothing by seeing AI slop on your timeline. You gain nothing by being able to generate a video of a triggered liberal with a septum ring crying. You might save some time maybe by plugging your college essay prompt into ChatGPT, but you're committing plagiarism and you're losing the ability to think for yourself, which will come back to bite you in the long run. There is truly nothing of value to be gained by AI. It's a nuisance that's being shoved down our throats in every conceivable way. Regular people have nothing to gain from it and everything to lose from AI, but the opposite is actually true for rich people. They're using it as a tool for wealth extraction as well as profit maximization in a plethora of dystopic ways. Most obviously, they're trying to replace workers with AI. The trackers over at jobloss.ai have already attributed almost 127,000 lost jobs to AI across 16 industries in 2025 alone. Moreover, healthcare providers are being sued for using AI to cut corners when it comes to patient care. Meta is being sued for using AI to target workers for mass layoffs. And as Penn Live reports, the Trump regime is now using AI in war, because, I'm sure that's not going to go wrong. And we get all of this for the low cost of gigantic data centers in our backyards that we have to pay for, that bleed precious resources from our communities and cause health issues. And that's if you're lucky to not be displaced from AI in the first place. That's if you're lucky enough to remain in your community that AI invaded, because increasingly, people are losing their homes due to data centers too.
To us, it's theft. It's literally a billion-dollar company stealing land from smaller people. And to say that you're doing it in the name of data centers is a slap in the face to us.
This family was forced to sell their home to help power AI data centers. Ainsley Brown's family was forced to sell her childhood home to utility company Georgia Power. If they hadn't, the company would have taken it from them via eminent domain. This is because Georgia Power is building a transmission line to help power new data centers in the area. This requires adding over 300 parcels of land. And this isn't the only family whose property is being taken by Georgia Power. Claudia Moore and her husband will lose the woods behind their house. Cynthia Van Epps is losing her backyard pool. And then there are the countless others that have lost their entire homes. Georgia Power is refusing to share what companies are behind the new data centers to protect their safety. What's happening in Georgia follows a nationwide trend of companies taking people's land in order to support data centers. Most recently, a woman in Virginia is fighting against a power pole taller than the Statue of Liberty being forced onto her property. AI data centers have caused our electric bills to skyrocket, they've stolen our water, and now they're taking our homes. Life necessities are being taken from us to power these things. And for what?
So the rich can get richer, of course. So Mark Zuckerberg can have even more money to colonize more Hawaiian islands. So Jeff Bezos can buy a fourth mega mansion. So Elon Musk can buy even more platforms that he can incite race riots on. And what's crazy is that you would think that these big tech dickheads would have at least a little bit of self-awareness and maybe press pause on data centers to avoid blowback from the public. But they truly could not care less. Some of them are making these fucking things bigger than ever.
If you don't want a data center, they're just going to make it bigger, because Meta is taking what would originally be their $10 billion Hyperion facility and investing $50 billion more into it, making it the largest meta facility ever to exist. And it will be about 4 times the size of Central Park in New York City, and will take the same amount of power as about 5 million homes to power. But don't worry, Energy Louisiana is out to build about 10 substations just to power this new AI facility.
Yeah, it is just outrageous. But as bad as things are, it does seem like we're reaching an actual breaking point, because some big tech dickheads, not all, but some, are finally starting to get the message that we don't want these fucking things in our backyard. So remember that gigantic data center that Kevin O'Leary was planning to build in Utah? Well, he faced backlash so severe that people actually protested the construction of his data center to the point where he couldn't pretend like he didn't hear what they wanted. And he tried to play it off like the protests were astroturfed, but in the end, he agreed to cut the size of his data center by 75% after he faced pressure from state lawmakers. And to be clear, the only reason why those lawmakers exerted any pressure on him whatsoever in the first place was because they were feeling the heat too from the people that O'Leary called paid protesters. Turns out they were actual people who were sincerely pissed off about the monstrosity that he wanted to build in their backyard. Shocker, who would be against that? It's inconceivable to these fucking people, apparently. But he's lucky that he's even getting 10,000 acres, because the amount of land that he should be able to get for his dumbass data center should be 0 acres. Okay? We already have a bajillion of these things. We don't need more. But as bleak as things seem, I am heartened by the fact that regular Americans are finally taking a stand against AI data centers.
Come with me to come protest against data centers at my local city council meeting.
Communities where data centers have been built are already reporting cases of tinnitus, which is hearing loss,
Data center emissions are projected to cause over 600,000 asthma cases and 1,300 premature deaths by 2030. Oh my God, that's amazing. Data centers cause noise pollution. Once they're up and running, diesel generators, as she had noted, venting systems, heating and cooling and AC systems, they leave a constant humming noise, audible to residents and wildlife. Which this is the cause of the tinnitus, if y'all didn't know. This is the cause of the hearing loss. Yeah. Data centers generate light pollution. Their facilities require all-night lighting that disrupts human natural circadian rhythm, and it disrupts our melatonin production, which is what our body produces to sleep. So therefore, we won't be able to sleep. So I don't know, do what you will with that. The long-term impacts of noise and light pollution include hearing loss, stress, insomnia, and a decreased quality of life, which y'all probably won't experience. I'm sure you're getting like bonuses to let this be built or some sort of, payment, which is cool. You don't make your money, but you're killing us. Okay.
And that's a TikToker who is not political, by the way. But she represents this new wave of Americans who are forced to become political because the threat that data centers pose to their communities. And all of this anger isn't going unnoticed. Lawmakers are beginning to realize that this is a red line for their constituents. They're not going to tolerate this. And as critical as I am of New York Governor Kathy Hochul, I was thrilled to see that she announced the one-year moratorium on data centers. And even though it needs to be much longer, it's enough to get the big tech dickheads shitting in their pants. I say that because Politico reports that they're already squirming. Quote, if a state as large as New York can put a pause on permitting, developers have to assume it could happen anywhere, said Joseph Hofer, principal and chief AI officer at the Monument Advocacy lobbying firm. Quote, I wouldn't call it panic, but the concern is real, and it moved fast, Hofer said. The real worry in the industry isn't New York specifically, it is the precedent. Caleb Mack, CEO of the National Artificial Intelligence Association, said he feared the impulse would spread to other states. Quote, I think we're just kind of at the cusp of probably dozens of states. If I had to be honest, he said, citing devastating poll results on people's attitudes toward data centers. If the industry doesn't wake up quick and start solving this, it's going to get a lot worse. Well, God forbid we make the CEOs and the lobbyists upset. Whatever will we do if the worst people in the country aren't satisfied for once? But what's funny is that the people opposed to this moratorium, because they're in the pocket of big tech, they don't really know how to make a positive case for data centers without sounding like shills. I'm not talking about the lobbyists. I'm talking about the influencers and the politicians. So the NPC talking point that they've seemingly agreed on is, well, I guess you must want China to win. That is actually what they are going with. I shit you not. That's how Kevin O'Leary pitched his data center, and it's the excuse that Josh Gottheimer used to oppose this moratorium that Kathy Hochul put in place. He was quoted in the article that we just read saying, just having a blanket moratorium, saying we're just going to pack up, go home, hand AI over to China and let them beat us, makes zero sense to me. But guess what? John Fetterman responded to the news in the same way, tweeting, China wins. And Ben Shapiro said, wait for it, China thanks you. I'm okay with China taking the dub here because it doesn't actually matter that much to me if Chinese tech companies make more money than American tech companies. Okay, I do not give a flying fuck who makes more money. In fact, you could argue that it's better for everybody if America takes the L here and China gets the win because China actually put up guardrails to stop AI from displacing workers. So they're just more equipped to handle the disruption than America. I'm sorry. So I'm glad they're winning. Congratulations, China. But listen, I don't want to hear shit from these people about our competitive advantage against China because when leftists like AOC advocated for a Green New Deal, which could have made America a global leader when it comes to clean, renewable energy, guess what they were doing? They were screeching at the top of their lungs about how she was trying to ban hamburgers and cow farts and shit like that. They were apoplectic at the thought that we invest in green energy as opposed to more fossil fuels. And guess what? We already missed the mark when it comes to green technology. That boat has sailed. And China beat us there too. But none of them got on board with the Green New Deal out of concern for America having a competitive advantage when it comes to the global green sector because they couldn't care less about that. Their concern is and always will be capital. Full stop. They opposed green energy because their fossil fuel donors wanted them to. And now they oppose a data center moratorium and data center moratoriums across the country because their big tech donors want them to oppose them. They're fine ruining the entire world for the rest of us that we have to live in so long as large multinational corporations can make the line go up year after year. And we all know that they wouldn't want these same data centers in their backyards. So the best justification that they can come up with to convince the peasants to let them wreak havoc in our communities is just like China. That's how they think they're going to get us to support this. That's how they're actually trying to sell us on this thing that's very clearly in our best interest. God bless their hearts. It is hilariously pathetic. But to be fair, invoking China as the boogeyman isn't their only defense. Some of them are choosing to just lie because, that's the easiest strategy. But just listen to what Trump's energy secretary said in response to Hochul's moratorium.
And of course, unfortunately, Governor Hochul has it exactly backwards. Data centers are the greatest tool we have right now to stop the rise of electricity prices and ultimately to bring them back down. It's the Democrat green energy policies that have driven energy prices up in New York State, actually shrunk their total electricity production. I mean, they banned fracking. They blocked a pipeline to bring natural gas, the biggest source of energy in New York. They closed the Indian Point nuclear reactor. They passed these crazy green energy mandates and an insane climate law. So the energy is expensive in New York and now sparse because of bad Democrat policies, nothing to do with data centers. In fact, that's the solution, not the problem.
Jesus Christ. You know what? I'm actually glad that he's stupid enough to say something so outrageous like that on national television, because even the dumbest Americans know that data centers don't make energy, they take energy. That's obvious. And I love how he has the audacity to blame Democrats for the cost of energy going up when an investment in green energy would have actually insulated us from the dumbass Iran war that Trump decided to start for no reason. But his solution is simple. Just let corporations frack in your backyard and poison your drinking water and cause earthquakes and let oil companies build pipelines through your neighborhoods that could burst and destroy everything. It's that simple. Just let large multinational corporations ravage your communities more, and this data center-induced energy crisis isn't going to be a problem. Sounds amazing. Sign me up for that. You know what? You're a great salesman, sir. Sign me up for that. Who wouldn't want that? But listen, that's the thing. The Trump regime, I think that they know that nobody is going to buy this line of horseshit. Nobody's buying what these data center merchants are selling, which is why the Trump regime is trying to make sure that we don't have the choice. And as Wired reports, the FBI and DHS are treating opposition to AI data centers as if it's a domestic terror threat under NSPM 7, because of course they are. So if you oppose data centers, the Trump regime is going to designate you as an anti-tech extremist, which, to be clear, is a terrorist threat under NSPM 7, and potentially go after you for opposing data centers. Like, fascism is so stupid. Like, it's just so fucking stupid. But as absurd as it sounds, I've got to be honest, I kind of view it in a positive light in a roundabout way, because it's a sign that opposition to data centers is reaching a fever pitch where they feel like they have to do something about it because people just don't want this shit in their backyards, which is good. I'd feel much worse about the situation if Americans just didn't care like they do about every other issue, but they kind of don't have the choice. They have to care. If you don't speak up, your community could be taken over by data centers. I mean, our governor in Oregon seems like she wants to turn our entire state into one big data center. Just evict all of us, move us to Washington or California or Idaho, and just make Oregon one big data center. And she's not the only governor who's doing this. All politicians from both parties are pretty bad on this. So the encouraging thing to see is that as bad as things are, Americans collectively are reaching the same conclusion for once. And we all agree that living in a big tech wasteland isn't ideal for any of us, regardless of where we fall politically. Thank goodness, because honestly, my faith in the American people has been shook, and I didn't expect them to oppose data centers. Like, if you would have told me a year ago that you could convince them to support the construction of data centers in their backyards, even if it poisoned them, if you just said that, like, it's going to bring down the cost of eggs by 5 cents, I would have expected them to be on board. So this is encouraging to me. But listen, even if we're able to come together and defeat the AI menace, it'll only be a matter of time before the same people who brought us this bullshit move on to the next thing or cook up the next new craze. But I'm just going to give you all a tip. No matter what it is that they come up with, just depose it from the start. Full stop, just depose it. Regardless of what they promise or how they pitch it, it'll serve nobody but the richest Americans, I promise you. And I can say that with confidence because we've reached the point in late-stage capitalism where the only thing new that's being produced is going to be used to reinforce the capitalist system to the detriment of everyone else, because we've just hit a wall. so much wealth has been extracted from the peasants that they can't even buy the things that capitalists produce, not even groceries. So rich people have no choice but to produce shit that they can sell to each other. And the only thing that's really lucrative in this environment is new technology that can be used by governments to suppress political uprisings and insulate the richest people from the poorest people as things continue to get worse. So don't buy whatever they're selling, because I promise you, it's going to be for them, not for you.
Luigi not happy. Oh, oh, oh.